All right. So that's a couple people, looks like, already on. Just making sure all of our stuff works. So let's do a quick sound check, shall we? I can do a sound check. I can do a sound check. Sound check. Sound check. Anybody hear me? Can you hear me? Anybody in track one picking up the sound from this? You picking up this sick beat? Yeah. I can make your hands clap. Sound check. Say that can make your hands clap. Sound check. Sweet. Okay. We're good. Okay. Great. If you're in the Slack channels, make sure you hop into track one. Put a link in the lobby so you can join there, since that's where the conversation will be. And after the keynote, that's where a link will be for the surveys. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes until we'll have everything set up for the keynote. When Kate gets here, I'll probably turn off my audio again so I can make sure that she's all set up and everything. But want to make sure that we're good to go and that our technology is functioning properly. So while we're here, I have a couple, I guess you could call them brain stretches. You know, it's good to get your brain warmed up. We're getting started with the next morning of the keynote. You know, we have a lot to do today. There's a lot of interesting sessions and topics that we're going to be covering. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll have a good variety of presenters. Yesterday was great, by the way. There was a lot of good presenters with a lot of different topics. We had some good different formats and things, and so I really appreciated it. There was a parent panel, which you may not have seen, but there was some good stuff there. And there was a couple, just go look at them all. They're all online, so you can watch them all after the fact and see them. Just the same links used before, they'll now go right to YouTube instead of to the live sessions. But while we're here, let's go ahead and stretch our brains. Let's warm up a little bit. We're going to talk about some common misconceptions in the world. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to give you a minute to think about it, to just mull it over in your own head. You don't need to post in chat or anything, but just chew on it for a minute, and then I'll tell you the answer. What is the shelf life of a Twinkie? What do you think? What's the shelf life of a Twinkie? Me. So the answer is the shelf life of a Twinkie is approximately 45 days. The original formula, it was only 25 days. People joke about how Twinkies last forever, right? They'll last through the nuclear holocaust and everything else. Turns out that's not true, at least not as far as the shelf life rating is concerned. All right, let's do another one. Okay, in martial arts, what color belt is the highest level that you can get to? Color belt represents the highest level you can reach in martial arts. Well, sometimes that's true. In some forms of martial arts, black belt is the highest. In other forms of martial arts, there are higher ranks that can be different colors. For example, with alternating red and white panels, or with a solid red belt, that can even be a higher level than the black belt. All right, here's another one. Where did the number 420 first come from? What was the 420? What was the reference for 420? Maybe you've heard that before, especially if you live in Colorado or Washington or Oregon. 420. Turns out 420 did not originate from the Los Angeles Police Penal Code for marijuana use. It didn't have anything to do with marijuana use. 420 stood for juvenile disturbance. And the Penal Code section 420 prohibits the obstruction of access to public land. The use of 420 started in 1971 at San Rafael High School, where it indicated time 420 was the time to go smoke under the statue of Louis Pasteur. But originally the 420 was for juvenile disturbance. There you go. All right, let's find another one. How tall was Napoleon Bonaparte? You ready for this? Napoleon Bonaparte's height was recorded as 5 feet 2 inches in French feet, which in English is actually 5 feet 7 inches. He wasn't actually that short. He was actually a pretty average height. Slightly taller than the average Frenchman of his time. So there you go. Chew on that. Let's do a science one. These are kind of fun. All right. So, why do we have seasons on the Earth? Why do we have different seasons? You know, we have a hot summer and we have a cold winter. The equator bounces out a little bit more, but as you get north and south, we have different seasons. Why does that happen? Make your hands clap. Ready? Okay, so seasons, a lot of people think that seasons happen because it's summer when the Earth is closer to the sun, and it's winter when the Earth is farther away from the sun. Here's what Wikipedia says. In fact, the Earth is farthest from the sun when it is in summer in the northern hemisphere. Seasons are caused by Earth's axial tilt. In July, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, so there are longer days with more direct sunlight. In January, it is tilted away, which means that the days are shorter and there's less sunlight. And the seasons are reversed in the southern hemisphere. It doesn't have to do with distance from the sun. It has to do with length of the day caused by the axial tilt. All right, here's another one. When is the best day to try to balance an egg? Stand an egg up so it doesn't fall over. Just balance it standing up. Ready? So, lots of people talk about how on the equinox, the vernal equinox, that is the best day to balance an egg because then, the sun will be perfectly over and everything will be magical. Turns out there is no relationship between astronomical phenomena and the ability to balance an egg. It is possible to balance an egg on every day of the year, not just the vernal equinox. Incidentally, in 1980, Frank Gigo was able to balance eggs on every day from February 27th to April 3rd. At the same time, he also found that some eggs would simply never balance on the equinox or otherwise. All right, here's another one. When you cook, so if you were a cooked steak before, a lot of times people say, make sure and give it a good sear. Get the pan nice and hot and sear the sides of the steak. Cook them really hot on all the sides. Why do we do that? Why do you sear a steak? For those that are joining us right now, if you're wondering, like Elena just is, we're waiting for Kate to hop on. So we are doing some mental stretches to try and get our brain muscles warm while we're waiting for the conference to start. So we appreciate everybody's patience. I'll talk about some logistics here in just a minute of the conference while we wait for Kate to hop on. But this is our last brain stretch. Why do we sear a steak before we cook it all the way through? The answer, it turns out, a lot of people will tell you that the reason is because then it will help it hold in the moisture. You sear it and that'll help the moisture stay on the inside. That's not actually true. It turns out that searing steak can actually cause it to lose some moisture compared to an equivalent of cooking without searing. Generally, the value of searing meat is that it creates a brown crust with a rich flavor due to what's called the Maillard reaction, which is a chemical reaction that happens at high temperature that causes lots of really good flavors, for example, the smell of chocolate chip cookies to occur. So, there you go. Okay, so once again, welcome everybody. Thanks for those who have joined us since we started our little warm-up. We are waiting for Kate to hop on board still. We're going to talk about a couple logistics for the conference. Again, thank you to everybody that came yesterday. A couple questions that we've had people ask. If you are interested in getting a certificate of attendance, we've had some people who have asked. Again, we try to make it clear, but some people are still asking about CEU credits. AAC in the cloud is not ASHA certified, so it's not, you can't get direct CEU credits. But we will generate a certificate of attendance for you that you can use for maintenance hours to submit on your own. So all you have to do in order to get that, for every session that you attend, make sure you're on the Slack channel. There's 3 tracks, track 1, track 2, and track 3. Make sure you're in the right track for that session, and we'll post a link to the survey for that session. Once you have that survey link, then you can fill out the quick, little attendance survey. And then at the end of the conference, we'll provide a link to everybody where they can generate their certificate of attendance for all the sessions that they've attended. Incidentally, after each session is over, it's automatically posted to YouTube. And if you go back to the conference homepage, aacconference.com, you can click on any past sessions and you can watch them even now. And after you watch a past session, there will be a link, an attendance link that will automatically show up. So even if you don't get to watch the sessions live, you can still get attendance hours for any of the sessions that you watch. And we will just leave those up for as long as people are going to benefit from them. Let's see, what else? If you haven't submitted your coloring page yet, make sure you get on that soon. We're going to close the submissions, maybe not right after Kate's keynote, but not long after. So maybe Kate's keynote would be a good time to get your colors on. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, we'll post a link in the lobby, but it's on Cough Drop's Facebook page. There's a coloring contest. There's 2 different pictures you can color. You just download one of the PDFs, print it off, color it, and then post a photo of your submission. And then later on today, we're going to do some rating. We'll do some votes and see which pictures get the most votes and who wins. So that'll be fun. One of the pictures is an AAC in the cloud, kind of a cloudy hot air balloon picture, and the other one is a cuttlefish. If If you're wondering, oh, I should talk about that too. If you're wondering what the story is with the cuttlefish is the unofficial mascot of AAC in the cloud. The cuttlefish is a fish that is not well understood. People sometimes could be a little intimidated by a cuttlefish because it looks different than what they would expect. It does things a little differently than they might expect. Maybe you're picking up a theme here. But the cuttlefish is actually one of the most intelligent creatures in the whole world. They have spatial reasoning, they have memory potentiation, they have, interestingly enough, they have these two little like LCD displays on the sides of their body that they can use to flash patterns and confuse their prey. There's lots of really interesting things about the cuttlefish, and they're pretty advanced. In the lab, there's been some pretty impressive discoveries that people have made about the intellectual capacity of the cuttlefish. It just has a very large brain matter, frankly. And so as a corollary, a lot of the communicators that we work with, when people initially see them, they might say, oh, they're weird, or oh no, they're different, or it looks like something's wrong. I don't understand that this is different than what I expect it to be. But when we take the time to get to know each of those individuals, we can find there's actually really great potential and some really fascinating and powerful things that we can learn. So, hence the cuttlefish. So, feel free to color a cuttlefish or AAC in the cloud, submit it to Facebook, and you'll be good to go. Also, if in any of the sessions today you happen to hear somebody talking about a cuttlefish, not me right now, but somebody else, post whatever sentence they say, even if it doesn't make sense, into Slack. And when you do that, then you will, if you're the first one to post in the Slack, you get a prize. We're gonna have some Amazon gift cards and some Kindle Fires, and we should be there. So I see Kate hopping on. I'm gonna mute my audio and camera real quick and make sure that she's good, and then we should be ready to start soon. All right, Kate, can you hear me? I don't hear you. I don't hear any audio on your computer. I'm gonna post a message in chat for you real quick, Kate. Just a second, everybody. Working on a groovy thing. Okay. Okay, let's give this a go.
Ooh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I hear that really bad.
All right, how's that?
Hang on just a minute.
computer. Is there a way to do this on my iPad from Hangouts, you know?
Let me look into that real quick. Hey everybody, we're still working on it. Thanks for being patient while we try to figure out what's going on. Technical difficulties are always an adventure, so we appreciate everybody's patience.
I want a good view, so let's be up here. Let's change. Okay, I'm hanging up the phone.
Okay, I think we've got Kate. Woohoo! Everybody cheer. Everybody give us a big hurrah cheer. We made it this far.
I'm going to still need the surface because my presentation is on.
While Kate's getting set up real quick, I am going to just give a quick introduction to Kate. So Kate Ahern completed a 5-year combined undergraduate and Master's of Science program in special education at Simmons College in Boston. Following graduation, she worked for several years in private and public schools. She taught special education for over a decade in educational collaboratives in Massachusetts. During this time, more and more of her caseload included students who needed assistive technology to access their curriculum. Finally, she moved to working full-time as an assistive technology specialist in 2011. Her interests include augmentative communication, assistive technology implementation in schools, and universal design for learning. We'll pass the baton over to Kate, and we will go. Well, it looks like we may be having some trouble still, Kate. Oh, okay. Sorry, that was my bad. Okay, sound should be working now.
Are we good?
I think we're good.
All right. So the only technical difficulty we still have, everyone, is that my slideshow was on my iPad and I was going to be presenting from my computer and able to show you my slideshow, but now I have no notes or anything. Isn't that exciting? We have a little introduction of me. My name's Kate Ahern. I'm a special education teacher from Massachusetts. And I just want to tell you a little bit about where I'm presenting from today. So this week is Camp Communicate at the Pine Tree Camp in Maine. And this is my 5th year volunteering here. And I have I turned the camera on them, but I don't think that's a good idea. I have a motley looking crew of parents here with me. Many of whom were up at 3:30 a.m. I hear that many campers decided that camp started at 3:30 this morning. So they are an exhausted group of people. But they are here to be my live audience. The thing about camp is we're in the middle of Maine. And although we are a high-tech AAC camp, sometimes the tech is not our friend out here. So I'm just trying to get my slideshow open. Do you like how I'm doing two things at once? I'm pretty good at this, right? Here we go, opening the slideshow. Nobody will be able to see it but me, and it's a beautiful slideshow with pictures of all these people's children that they now can't see. So my presentation today is called See Me, See My AAC. And it's based, the title is based on a viral campaign that we ran on the internet, on Facebook, called See Me, See My AAC. And for those of you who are sitting at your computers and can go onto Facebook or a similar social media site, you should be able to put in the hashtag See Me, See My AAC, and all of the pictures from when we ran that campaign should come up. So I'm live from Camp Communicate today. It's a 5-day family AAC camp. So moms, dads, siblings, cousins, all sorts of people come with the AAC user. It's held at the Pine Tree Camp in Maine, which is a fully accessible special needs camp with a wheelchair accessible tree house and fully accessible playground and adapted pontoon boats so the kids can go out boating. And during camp, all of the campers have a one-to-one staff, and then we have tons of speech therapists and teachers and volunteers who are here to help out with everything. And then AAC instruction for the AAC users is embedded to regular camp activities. So drama, outdoor games, arts and crafts. We have a newspaper club where we make the camp newspaper. And then the parents get to either go to workshops like this workshop, or they get to just have time to be on their own and take care of themselves and go kayaking or go read a book or take a nap or have time for themselves, which is something that can be hard to do. And you can find out more about Camp Communicate by just Googling Pine Tree Camp and looking for Camp Communicate on there. And hold on, there we go. You already heard a little bit about me. Let me tell you a little bit about my beliefs in terms of AAC and why I think that I tend to have quite a bit of success with my students, and sometimes it's success with kids who others have already said won't be successful and who have been told are not candidates for AAC. So the first is I believe that AAC intervention is relational. The relationship comes first. If you don't have a relationship with the AAC user, then there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to be able to make much progress. You have to have that in place first before you can really expect anything to happen. I think a lot of times when we go in and we try to work with an AAC user, what ends up happening is we put all sorts of demands on the child, point to this, find that, touch this, and we don't have the relationship and they don't trust us. So then we're asking them to fight their apraxia, to work really hard, to do something they may not understand why you're asking. And they have no reason to trust that you believe in them and that they should make an effort for you. Next, I think that all children have the potential to learn, and that I and everybody else is incapable of knowing the cognitive abilities of a child who can't speak, especially if they can't speak and can't move and can't use their body well. The testing we have isn't appropriate for the kids that we work with. So we kind of create this vicious circle where the child can't do what we're asking them to do in this assessment that was meant for a kid who talks and has good motor skills. And then we decide they're not capable of having AAC, and then this vicious circle ensues where they don't have words, so they don't get to try words, so they won't get to have words, so they don't get to try words. I'm also system agnostic, and what I mean by that is I think the best AAC system is the system that works. So I'm not one of these people who's going to say every kid needs to be on X system or the best language system is whatever. The best system is the system that works for that child. I really struggle when I hear other professionals put down other systems and say, oh no, you shouldn't be using that. You should be using this because it's what I as a professional know. We don't have a right to do that. Our job is to support the best choice for the child. beyond that, I think communication is a basic human right. And even if we don't believe a child's going to make progress with the speech device, it's our job. It's to give them the communication that they may someday use. Holding off because we don't believe isn't a good excuse for not giving kids communication. And I believe that choices, while they're valuable, choice-making things are important, they're not communication. You know, do you want juice or cracker isn't communication, it's making a choice. And that's important. I don't want anybody deciding, you know, what I'm going to wear. But I also know that picking out my clothes is not communication. It's just a choice-making activity. So we need to give kids more than choice-making. You know, all too often we start our kids with, you know, press the bag for the juice or sandwich, and then we make them press it for every bite. Well, first of all, no typical kid has to press a button or say a word for every bite of food. And second of all, where is the motivation in that? Communication is supposed to be for connecting to other people. And sure, you'll press the button to get your sandwich, but you're not learning the most important part of communication, which is how to connect with someone else. My next belief is that language is messy and it's not hierarchical. So while we have all these ideas of what order kids are going to learn words and when they're going to learn which thing, that doesn't hold true. So I'm going to ask the audience in front of me, how many of you knew what the first word of your speaking children was going to be? Now think about, so the first word I'm going to guess for many was mama, but not for all. No, I've got almost everybody shaking their head no. So, and could we actually put the light back on? Would that be okay? Oh, the glare from the sun and the lake was killing me. Okay. So we don't know what our typical speaking kids' first words are going to be. We don't know what their first sentence is going to be. Why do we think we can guess what word should go on a talker for a kid who's just learning to communicate? How on earth could we possibly know? You know, I know kids who their first word was vacuum, or was your first word up? No, it was that. This. It was this. So there's a sibling in the audience, a sibling of an AAC user, and her mom has told me before her first word was this. Nobody could predict that. You couldn't predict the first word to be this. So we've got to give the kids as many words as possible, hoping that the first word that they're going to choose is on there. And also that learning a robust language, learning AAC, a robust language system on AAC, is just like learning any other language. If you want to learn to speak Italian, your best bet is to move to Italy. If you want to learn to speak with a communication device, your best bet is to be totally immersed in that communication device. Everybody around you needs to be using it. You need to make the environment an environment that speaks that language. Pro Loco to go, you need to become a family that speaks Pro Loco to go. You need to become a classroom that speaks Pro Loco to go. And that goes for any other system. If your child's using Unity or LAMP or Pod or whichever system they're using, becoming immersed in that is how they're going to learn language. How many people in this room took a foreign language in high school? So pretty much, I would say almost everybody. Only a couple people didn't. And how many of you out there in the audience took a foreign language? I bet probably everybody did. Now, how many people are fluent in their foreign language? I got 2 hands raised. So out of all the people in my audience, 2 of them are fluent. And I know why one is fluent. It's because she lived in Spain. So she is fluent because she moved there and was immersed in Spanish. And how about you, Beth? She lived in Ecuador. So that is why. So in our very random sampling right here, we know that of all these people who took 4 years of a foreign language, 45 minutes a day, 180 days a year, none of them became fluent, not one. So somehow we expect our AAC users who are getting even less time than that. They're not getting 45 minutes a day every day of the school year for 4 years. You all know it, right? In speech, maybe, right? But the only way to become fluent is to live that language. The only people in this room who are fluent are the people who moved to another country and lived that language. And that's what our aim needs to be as professionals and as parents, is to create an environment where they're living in that language system. And yes, I know it's really hard. I know that it can feel impossible. I also believe in the idea of motivate, model, move out of the way. There's all this fancy language out there that explains to you all of the studies and things that have been done on how to teach AAC. But what all of them boil down to is that you need to motivate the child. There needs to be something to talk about. And if all you ever talk about is lunch, that's going to get boring. You have to have something to talk about. There have to be exciting things to talk about. And then you have to model, so that we're back to that immersion. They have to see other people use that language. And that's one of the reasons why AAC camp is so important. There's a lot of kids here at AAC camp who are never with another kid who uses a device. And then they come to camp and every kid here has a talker. And it's this moment where they get to say, oh, wait, lots of people are using this. And then after that, move out of the way. And what I mean by move out of the way isn't like, you know, give them the keys to the house and move, you know, move. Bye, guys. See ya. What I mean is backing off. I think we're always in these kids' faces. Tell me this. Tell me that. What do you think of this? Do you like it? Tell me yes or no. Yes or no. Go to your describing words and give me a describing word. We do that to them all the time. And nobody wants to talk when somebody's in their face. Okay, I think we've all been in situations where we just wanted someone to back off. I cannot imagine how often our AAC users feel that. So by move out of the way, I simply mean backing off and becoming conversational, giving their some space so that it isn't a relationship where you're telling them what to say and they're saying it. Instead, it's an opportunity for a conversation. You're not all up in their grill. 4 or 5 years ago, I presented a session here at Camp Communicate to the parents, and one of the campers attended. And in the session, I said, we got to get out of their faces. And the camper who attended went crazy. He was so excited to finally hear somebody say that adults should not be in his face. You know, at the time, I think he was 10 or 11 years old, and he was just thrilled. And then he and I actually last summer, the two of us presented at the International AAC Center. So something that started as him being excited that I finally said something he was wishing somebody would say. We went to the AAC, the International Society for Augmentative and Alternative Communication International Conference last summer, and we presented together about sort of these ideas that let's think about things from a new perspective. And his name is Owen, and he wrote Owen's Pet Peeves of AAC, which you can find if you Google, probably. And then my last belief is that we have to trust the process. And I have this happen to me every time, not every time, but a lot of times when I see a new client. I'll sit down with a new client. I'll be, talking my talk. Let's give them robust language. Let's give them more language. Let's, relieve some of the pressure and stop making them anxious. And then for a few minutes, they don't seem to be getting it. They don't seem to be into the idea of communicating me. And then I have that moment of doubt where I'm thinking, oh no, what if I'm wrong? What if I shouldn't give them this many buttons? What if it's too much? What if I'm making a mistake? And without fail, if I just trust the process and I quiet myself enough that I'm not second guessing myself, invariably the child will start communicating. So you have to sort of trust that this will work. And it's longer for some kids than other kids. Sometimes it's going to be a 5, 6, 8 year process to build them towards using a communication device to fully. I've got moms in the audience going like this. Yes, it will be a long process. For other kids, they get the device and they almost instantaneously know how to use it, and that's fantastic. But for a lot, it's a slow process, and that's okay. But we have to trust the process. We have to trust that this works. Immersion works. Giving our kids access to the devices all the time works. Robust language works. We have to trust that so that in those moments where we're like, oh my God, what are we doing? We have, some faith that we should keep going. I'm so sad that you're all missing the very cute pictures on my slideshow. So how do we go about building a voice? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give the child robust language, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to teach them that their voice is valuable. We're going to have that immersive experience with language as often as humanly possible. We're going to specifically teach vocabulary and how to use the device. And we're going to work towards communicative competencies, and I'll tell you what those are in a minute. We're going to work towards AAC use every waking moment. And yes, I know it sounds impossible, but remember, AAC isn't just a high-tech device. AAC can be sign language, it can be gestures, it can be using a low-tech communication board. This doesn't mean you have to have their very fancy high-tech device set up in front of them every moment, but it does mean they do need a way to communicate every moment. Just at lunch, you know, so we're at camp, and just at lunch, the kid I was sitting next to is a kid I've known for 5 years. We've come to camp together for 5 years. He looked at my heaping plate of food, and he told me, without using his device at all, without using any language, he told me very clearly that I was eating too much, and eating that amount of food at lunch was going to make me fatter. he told me that, and all in low tech. He uses LAMP beautifully, but he managed to do that all with gestures. Point to my food, tell me it was a lot, tell me that I was going to get larger if I kept eating. And I just told him that I didn't think he was anyone to be fat shaming other people. But, and that's my point, you've got to have a way to communicate all the time. And if it's low tech, it's low tech, and maybe you're as clear as he was, and maybe you're not. And then we need to teach literacy. And that's vital towards becoming a truly competent communicator. And so where we're going to start is that you need words to prove you can use words. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you only give a child 4 words or 2 words, that's all they can use. If you give them more, all done, toilet, and snack, all they're ever going to say is more, all done, toilet, and snack. You'll never have any proof that they can do more because you never gave them any more words. You have to have words to prove you can use the words. When we decide how many words we're going to give to a kid, we are deciding the size of their world. And I gave myself goosebumps. Either that or it's cold in here. Is it cold in here? No, so I gave myself goosebumps. We're deciding the size of their world. So when you have somebody tell you that your child should only have 10 buttons or 20 buttons or 18, is that true? Probably not. Your child should have as many buttons as they can see and touch. And by that, I mean perceive and access. So see may mean visually see, but for some kids, if they're auditory scanners, it means how many words can they hold in their memory? Because they have to remember every word you said to know that they're getting to the word that they need, right? So as many words as the child can perceive, and then as many words as they can access or touch. And that means that you have to look at what other supports do you need. You know, some kids may be able to touch very small buttons, but they have a tremor and they're missing. So you have to think outside the box. Do you need to space the buttons out more so if they miss a blank area? Do you need pages for when they're upset where the buttons are very big? Because when they're upset, they're not very good at aiming. But when they're calm and feeling great, they can have very tiny buttons. So really thinking about as many buttons as they can see and perceive for that situation. I would honestly never go lower than 30 buttons, ever. I mean, if I can make it more, I do more, but anything lower than 30 buttons, you're going to have to turn the page too often. Because remember, the trade-off of smaller buttons is more pages, right? If you have 188 words on a page, that's 188 words you don't need to turn a page to get to. So the most you can put on the page is going to be the fastest. Also remember that when we offer a limited vocabulary, we risk not giving the child the words that they need to be motivated. You know, if you only give a child 18 core words and the thing that's going to motivate them is Dora the Explorer, and you don't have any Dora words on there, then you're not giving them the words that they're going to be motivated to communicate. If you can't say I love you or I want a hug with the device, with the system, it's not a very good system. The whole point of communicating is connecting, so those words need to be on there. And also remember that modeling and robust language can be done as an addition to whatever you're working on. So if you have a child who's doing joint attention or choice making, or they have goals that are sort of not communication goals, but they're headed towards communication, you should also be modeling robust language. And if you have a child who's doing something like PECs, you should also be modeling robust language. It isn't an either or. Nobody says if you do PECs, you can't also model robust language. You can do both. And that's what we should be doing. We should be being immersive in a language system. And then if you feel you need something that's very small steps and a lot of structure, you should do that too. So what do I mean by a robust language system? So the acronym that I have for that is MEGA PC, and I will put all of these slides up at the end of the presentation, I promise. So MEGA PC, which for me stands for motor planning. The first M is motor planning. So the buttons are consistently placed. You're able to hit what you need to hit almost without looking. So for those of you at home and those of you in my audience who are awake, hold up your hands and dial your first phone number. Right? Or like, you know, whatever your first phone number was. Might have been, mine was definitely this. You're able to do it, right? You're able to dial that number. That's because you've memorized the motor plan. You've got the motor plan for that number. You know where each button is in relation to every other button. That's what we want our kids to do on AAC. That we want them to have the motor plan so that they can find things without too much effort. So recently I had a child start on a vocabulary called POD, and I have lots of POD users who are using the Compass with POD app, but this young lady we're trying on the Grid with POD from England. All the buttons have the content is the same, but the buttons are in different places. And I keep losing my motor plan when I go to model for her. So I'll go to model and I'll reach for a button and it's not where I'm used to it being. And it completely messes me up. and I'll stop and I'll look at the little girl and I'll say, oh, I just lost my motor plan. This button is not where I expected it to be. And she'll laugh and laugh and laugh. But that reminds me how important it is that we have a motor plan within our system. The next piece of what is a robust language is it has an expandable vocabulary. If you can't easily move from one level to another, if you can't easily add language without losing where all the buttons are, then there's a problem. Now, sometimes you're stuck with what you get, right? If you need the best eye tracking device in the world, but the vocabulary doesn't meet all these qualifications, then it is what it is. But if you're able to have all the access pieces in place, then you want to have all these features. And a way to easily expand vocabulary is really important. The ability to have grammar supported. You know, eventually you may put your child on a device and think, oh, we'll never get to the point where we're doing past tense and, you know, possessives, but you will, right? Because we trust the process. And it may not be in a year, it may be in 20 years, but eventually you're going to be working on grammar. One of the people in the audience right now, her daughter is at a point where we're really working on word order. She has a habit of gathering all the words she needs in her message box and not putting them in order and then playing them. And then we have to figure out where it's supposed to have been in to make sense. So, but we never imagined that when we imagined it, but it was so far off to us when we started her. She had such a hard time just at the single word level. But now she's at a point where she does 4 or 5 word sentences. Just, they're jumbled. So having the ability to do grammar is where we're at with her, understanding word order, and then the ability to use a past tense verb so we understand that, oh, this thing already happened, as opposed to it's a want, right? Because we always all assume it's a want. A child gives us one word and we assume they're saying, I want that. You know, we were at newspaper club a few minutes ago and somebody said, one of the kids said rock star. And about half the people sitting with her thought, oh, she would like to look at pictures of rock stars right now. And about the other half were thinking, oh, she says she's a rock star. Well, the truth is we don't know what she meant by rock star because she needs to give us more words. And that's the next step for her. And we were able to ask her questions to figure out what she meant and then show her with her device. We were able to model how she could have said that with more words so we could have understood it better. The next thing you need in a robust system is the alphabet. You have to have a way to spell. Almost every device on the market right now has access to the alphabet. You have to have a way to go in and spell something that doesn't happen to be in your device. It helps if there's also word prediction, so you can then find the words you're looking for. Okay, I'm finding this a little bit hilarious, but people are tweeting what I'm saying right now, and the tweets are popping up on my screen. I should have, I thought I was going to present from a computer, not an iPad, so I didn't think about shutting that off, but thank you for tweeting. I appreciate it. So you need the alphabet, and you also need pre-programmed whole messages. People are very hung up right now on core language and very into it, and so my core language is vital, but without fringe language, you aren't able to say what you're talking about. That is nice or that is good. Those are all core words, but what is that? What are you talking about? You need the fringe language in order to have any context. And beyond that, you do need some full messages in your talker because there are times when people aren't going to wait for you to make a message. If you go into the pharmacy and the pharmacist says to you, can I help you? And you need to say, I'm picking up one prescription. I don't know about your pharmacy, but in my pharmacy, if I tried to take 5 minutes to come out with that message on a talker, I'm pretty sure they'd shove me aside. So there are times when you need it all ready for you. So you might need a page for the pharmacy that says, my name is Kate Ahern, my address is blank, my date of birth is blank. There should be 3 of them. And that can be ready for you so that when you get there, you have all of those messages ready to go and nobody has to wait for you to make your message. But on the flip side, just having whole sentences doesn't work either. You have to have the core words to make your own sentences. Which is the last thing. That's the C in MEGA PC in my acronym is core words. You need core words. Those are what makes up most of what we say. About 80% of what we say are made up of these core words. So if we listen to what I just said, about is a core word, 80 is not. Percent is not. Of is a core word. What is a core word. We is a core word, and say is a core word. So in that sentence, all but 3 of the words, or 2 of the words, were core words. So you have to have those in your system. And every kid should have a system that meets the criteria of robust language. Will they use it the minute you set it in front of them? No, that's a myth. This idea that you can do a trial and set it in front of them and magically they can use this expansive system the first time, the world doesn't work like that. The idea is we get it and then we immerse them in that language and they'll learn to use it. The next thing we need to do in building a voice is to teach the kids that their voices are valuable. The picture on here is of a camper who's here at Camp Communicate. And the reason that she's the picture on this slide is she's had a device for many years since she was 7 and she's 16 now. Oh, that's unbelievable. I'm so old. So she, but when I first met her, she hated her AAC device. She loathed it. And the reason she loathed it is it was a mess. It had all sorts of different, everybody had taken a turn programming. So there were too many cooks in the kitchen. The language wasn't consistent. Most of the language in there was academic related, so she could do schoolwork. And she hated it. And when we moved her to a new device, what we told her was, you don't have to use this. But we think it's important, so we're going to use it. And for a good couple of months, we talked to her with that new device. and never expected her to say anything back. We never asked her to say anything back. We never put that on her. We just talked to her with the device. And at the time, she was pretty into The Little Mermaid. Well, she probably still is. And she would sit and watch, and we would go through the plot and say the plot of the movie as it happened with her talker. Look, she go up there. She want live up there. All right. She want New World. She want kiss him. Oh, no voice. And we do the whole plot. And then one day her dad put her in front of the TV to watch The Little Mermaid. He set up the device and he went to do something else. And the campers have discovered that the adults are hiding out in this room. So those of you watching should know that if the campers bust through the doors, this workshop is all over. Just so you know. But eventually she learned her system, and her dad sat her in front of the TV and put on the movie and left, and she actually put in the whole plot herself. We had no idea she could do that. We had no idea she learned it. We were only trying to show her that her voice was valuable. And now she yells at her mother if it is not set up before she gets out of bed. If she goes into the kitchen and that device is not set up and turned on, she screams and yells. So she sees the value of her own voice. And that's really important. You know, when I see a kid push their device away, that makes me so sad because we're doing it wrong, right? If we've gotten them to a place where they push the device away because they think it's work, then we, the adults, we're doing it wrong. They should be excited to have their talkers. They should be excited to tell us what they think and what they feel and to boss us around and to use it all the time. If we're getting that push away, then we need to rethink how we're doing things. And how we rethink it is we create that immersive experience. So we talk to a typical child for about 18 months before we expect anything back, right? So think about, you brought a baby home from the hospital, you're talking to it, you hit a month, baby's a month old, you've been talking to it for a month, they haven't talked back. Do you stop talking? They're like, you know what, I'm done. I've been talking to this kid for a month. They're not talking back to me. I'm finished. What about 6 months? It's been 6 months. That's 2 quarters of a school year. There is no progress on this goal. I have no data to indicate that we should continue. Do we stop talking to the baby? No. We talked to that kid for 18 months. And even when we hit 18 months, what they say doesn't make any sense, right? They've got up, mama, dada, no. Right? They're not giving it back to us in full sentences. If we say to them, say hot dog, they might say hot dog, or they might say, bye-bye, car. Because that's what people do when they learn language. That's what our AAC users are going to do. So we're going to do the same thing. We are going to give them intensive aided language stimulation, which is just talking to them with their talker, as long as we have to do it. Now, if we think of, how much time our kids who are going to speak verbally get exposure to their language, they're not only getting it when you're talking directly to them, they're getting it when the TV's on, when the radio's playing, all the signs that are hanging up that are in their language, they're able to see that. When you talk to somebody else in your household, that baby is overhearing it. They're so immersed in that language, it isn't just when they talk to them. Now, I know that if you went home and your whole family only spoke in AAC to each other all the time, life might get a little rocky. But I just want you to think about the sheer amount of time, right? How much time an infant is getting immersed in that language versus how much an AAC user is getting. And when you think this is taking forever, yeah, it's not the same quality of input. It is going to take forever, because there's no way for us to recreate that. So we have to be patient, which I'm terrible at. I don't know about the rest of you. People always say to me, you're so patient. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure where you're getting that. One of the things that we do with little kids is we take it in stride. We don't even think about it. We just keep talking to them. And that's what we need to do for our AAC users. Now I'm starting, because we lost all that time with our technical difficulties, I'm picking and choosing slides to go over. So the next thing that we do is we've created that immersive experience. We've made their voice valuable. We've given them a robust language system. The next thing we need to do is teach towards communicative competencies. So Janice Light came up with the first 4 communicative competencies, and then somebody named Buchelman added the 5th one later. The first one is linguistic competency. So that's language. That's vocab and punctuation. I've got a whole bunch of campers staring in the window. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, people out there in the world. Oh, they've been redirected. I don't know what they've been promised, but I don't know. Okay, they ran away. We've got a few more minutes before they attack. So linguistic competency, which is language, that's understanding vocabulary. It's receptive and expressive. Operational, which is understanding how to get from one page to another, turning up and down your volume, charging your device, wiping the screen if it gets dirty, changing the settings. That's your operational competency. The next is social. That's the ability to use, now all the parents are at the window. Is it my kid? I can tell you whose kid it was. I was watching. It's neither of your kids. So social is the ability to use social rules. You know, the idea that like if you say something to someone, you should probably look at them. That you want to get somebody's attention before you say something. All those sorts of social rules are part of it. And then strategic. So strategic is the ability to fix communication breakdowns and to be smart about how you communicate. And the rules are different when you're using AAC or not using AAC. You know, deciding if something's worth repeating. I mean, I think we all do that, but it's a lot less effort for us to repeat something than for an AAC user to repeat something. So having the strategic skills of, you know, if what you were saying is, I have a peanut allergy, does that have peanuts? Yeah, you're probably going to want to repeat that until somebody gets what you're saying. But if what you're saying is, you know, oh, it looks like it might rain later, might not be worth the effort if you're not understood. So having those strategic skills. And then self-talk was what was added by Buchelman. And that's the idea that we can use language to talk ourselves through situations and to support ourselves in life. And we all do this all the time, right? So I was getting really anxious that the Wi-Fi wasn't working at the beginning of this presentation, and we tried a computer, and we tried a Surface Pro, and we tried 2 phones. And, you know, so my self-talk was very much, it'll happen if it's going to happen. You know, you're not going to think of any solutions if you're freaking out. So calm down. This will work out. And it didn't work out the way I wanted to, but close enough. So having that ability to use language to talk to yourself. Our AAC users usually need to have external self-talk before they develop internal self-talk. And that's true for all little kids, right? Little toddlers, they talk out loud and they're talking to themselves, and it's how they work themselves through things. Our AAC users often need to go through that same phase where they talk out loud to themselves with their device before they internalize that language. So we have to make sure those messages are there, that they have messages that say, I can stay calm. You know, I don't need to hit anybody. I shouldn't run away. All of those things need to be on there so that they can remind themselves. The next thing that we do is we teach literacy. The most expansive AAC system has about 4,000 words in it. The English language has over 100,000 words. So there's no way you can have every word in the English language in your system. It's not possible. So if you want access to all of those words, you have to be able to spell. Typical kids should get 2 hours of literacy instruction a day, and so should our AAC users. 2 hours of literacy instruction a day at school. If they're not getting that, that is, you know, after you fight for communication and you get communication and you fight to have the device all the time and you fought for a nurse and you fought for the bus monitor and you fought for all those things, the next thing you're fighting for is 2 hours of literacy instruction a day. High quality literacy instruction is the same for our kids, our AAC users, as it is for typical kids. If your school district is using Foundations, which is a wonderful reading program for the early ages for K-3, your kids shouldn't be doing some sight word program. They should be doing the same thing. There's lots of resources out there about teaching reading. The rules are the same for our kids as for any other kid. There are resources on how to teach our kids to read out there. But what I want to tell you about reading is your kids should be learning the same way as everyone else is learning. How far your learner is going to go towards being literate, we don't know that. We can't know that from the get-go. But you don't know that about any child from the get-go. Is this kid going to be a kid who loves to read and is reading on the college level in 6th grade? Or is this going to be a kid who, you know, reads at a high school level at the end of high school and never picks up a book again? We don't know that with a typical kid, and we don't know that with our kid. We have to try, and we have to teach literacy if we want them to be able to fully communicate. Some of the things we all need to think about is before they happen is how are we going to use AAC in every situation? You know, you want to be thinking about how are we going to manage AAC at the pool well before the pool is open. You know, you want to be thinking about, do I need waterproof communication boards for the pool? What do I need to make this happen? So finally, I want to say that we have a new social media campaign happening. So See Me, See My AAC wrapped up in June, and it was a huge success. We had hundreds of entries from all over the world. We have blog entries about the See Me, See My AAC campaign in Ecuador and in England and all over the world. People joined into this campaign. Our next campaign is going to start July 1st. And it's going to be See Me, See My AAC with a second hashtag of where are your words, with your all in capitals. And the idea is going to be post pictures of your child using AAC in a recognizable place. So that could be the Eiffel Tower, or it could be Big Ben, or it could be the pyramids, or it could be a doctor's office or a park or your grocery store or a Chipotle, someplace people will recognize. Post it onto your Facebook feed or your Twitter or your Instagram with those hashtags and ask your friends to guess where your child is. So this will get hopefully your social network involved in thinking about communication in all those places. At the end of August, on August 30th, I will go through, I'll find all the hashtags, I'll enter all the names, and I'll give out some prizes. But in order to win a prize, you have to be part of the AAC through Motivate, Model, Move Out of the Way Facebook group. All right, so that's our big contest for the summer that's starting on July 1st, a new See Me, See AAC. I want to thank everybody who has been watching online. I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties. You know, Wi-Fi at a camp in Maine is, you know, it's not why we come here. We don't come for the Wi-Fi. We come for the lake, and we come for how beautiful it is, and we come for the people. We come for the speech pathologist, Mom's saying. Anyway, thank you all, and I'm not quite sure how I end this thing. Do I just hang up?
Thank you, Kate. We appreciate your time. I'll take it, so you're good to go. We really appreciate this. We're looking forward to the resources. You know, if you want to post your slides so we can have access to those. And thanks to the live audience too. We really, really appreciate it. I think that made a big difference for the keynote. Sorry again to everyone for the technical difficulties. We just had to get things lined up. If you missed the first part, as soon as the session's over, it'll be live online on YouTube, so you can go watch it and review it. Thank you everyone for attending, and we will get the next round of sessions started up right now.